wait for him to come.
¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes. Lo primero de todo, permitirme que tenga un recuerdo para Marisa Paredes, que nos dejaba ayer. Una persona que, como ha dicho Chema Prado, su pareja de casi 4 décadas, quiere que sea recordada como una gran actriz y una extraordinaria persona, así la vamos a recordar. Yo siempre tuve una relación muy cordial con ella, tenía esa imagen casi como de estrella de Hollywood, es de las pocas estrellas, de las últimas estrellas, grandes estrellas que nos quedan en España, ¿no? Con ese nivel de elegancia, de sofisticación, y sin embargo cuando la conocíais era una persona muy cercana, siempre muy empática, así que nada, lo primero de todo, un recuerdo para ella hoy, y nada, deciros que estoy muy contento de estar aquí, muy excited, como dicen los americanos. Realmente este año cuando me llamaron para ser jurado en el Festival de Cannes, había un título en la sección oficial que despertaba muchísima curiosidad, que era La sustancia, porque es una película de género y las películas de género no suelen concursar en las secciones oficiales de los grandes festivales. Había mucha curiosidad, mucha expectación, y la verdad es que el pase en Cannes cumplió todas esas expectativas. La película consiguió finalmente el reconocimiento al mejor guión. Podría haber sido también el premio a mejor actriz, podría haber sido la propia película, podría haber sido la dirección. Finalmente fue el premio del guión, y desde entonces la película no ha hecho más que crecer y crecer y conseguir un estatus de película de culto. Es un éxito además en taquilla, es una película que rompe fronteras en ese sentido. Lleva creo que casi 60 millones recaudados en todo el mundo, una película en principio que iba destinada a un mercado, como lo llaman muchas veces los distribuidores, un mercado nicho. No, el nicho es muy grande, la película es un éxito tremendo y sigue rompiendo esquemas. Tiene 5 nominaciones a los Globos de Oro, 5 nominaciones a los Critics' Choice. Hoy salen las shortlist de los Oscars y no tengo ninguna duda de que va a salir muy bien parada. Y además tenemos la suerte de tener hoy ni más ni menos que a su directora, productora y guionista, Coralie Fargeat. Lo primero de todo, lo íbamos comentando antes de salir. Yo el año pasado estuve en esa rueda de la campaña de premios donde hay tanta promoción, y uno tiene la sensación de que La sustancia es una película que se ha defendido a sí misma frente a grandes películas más grandes, con grandes cantidades de dinero gastadas en las campañas. De repente parece una película que nadie hubiese pensado que era una película, un contender en la campaña de premios, y sin embargo está ahí colocada, muy bien colocada en todas las apuestas, no solo la película, sino también la directora, todo el equipo, así que enhorabuena. ¿Cómo lo estás viviendo?
First of all, thank you for being here. It's incredible to see this crowded room, and thank you, Juan Antonio, for being there with me. I'm really, really happy to have this discussion. So it's true that the journey of the film has been quite incredible. I mean, when you write and direct a film, you, of course, always wanted to reach the audience and to meet the people, but you never know how it's going to go. The only tool I think that you have when you make the film is to be sincere with what you want to do, to really do the film with passion, and to be faithful to who you are. And I think that's really what I've done with the film. I really wrote it in a very specific way to express very important things that I wanted to express in a way that is a genre that is me as a filmmaker, that defines me as a filmmaker. And I really kept this during all the process of the fabrication, the post-production, to deliver the film to be the one that I had developed from the start. And now it's true that after Cannes, first of all, the screening at Cannes was something incredible for me. It was my first time I was selected at Cannes in the main competition. I was immensely proud, and I knew that for me, in my best dreams, that's where I wanted the film to be, shown, because I think Cannes is really a place like no one else for cinema, where, different voices and different genres and new visions are, invited and are looked at as being cinema, no matter, how different they can be. And I think that really Cannes they were the first to see the monster and to love my film. So that was very, very moving. And then little by little, the movie started to reach the different countries. We released in different countries, and I could really see and feel the snowball starting to grow with people from all the different countries enjoying the movie, reacting to it, digesting it, taking it really with them, and doing so many, memes about it, discussions about it, costumes for Halloween's about it, which is a truly genuine best proof of love that you can receive, from the audience. And when we started also to get all these recognitions from, the awards, and it was really for me first a huge honor, to be invited to these beautiful tables, and also so powerful for me to feel that this new voice, with my way of making film, with my sincerity and my guts, had reached, places of cinema, where there is no judgment about what is intelligent, not intelligent, what is worth being rewarded or not worth being rewarded. It was just welcoming this new cinema form to the table, and I've been immensely proud for, yes, the work of love that I made, but also that all my crews made, because it was a very challenging technical film to make, and all my crew, we shot in France, so the crew was French except from the DOP and composer who were from the UK, and they worked with me with passion as well to craft everything that is on the screen. So I was so proud for everyone, and I think, yes, this work of love, I think, transpired in the film in the end.
Sí, es curioso lo que dices de la nueva voz, nuevo público también, porque miro al público y me encanta la cantidad de gente joven que hay aquí. Normalmente uno a veces tiene el prejuicio de que Cannes es un festival para viejos directores, y sin embargo creo que Cannes estaría feliz, y Guy Fremont en persona estaría muy feliz de ver el público que está aquí reunido para escucharte. Me quedo con lo de la sinceridad. Hay un momento que me gusta mucho al principio de la película, cuando el personaje de Elizabeth se ve forzada a entrar en el lavabo de los hombres, y es en ese momento cuando ella puede escuchar las conversaciones sinceras y honestas y la forma tan desagradable con la que los hombres se refieren a las mujeres, especialmente en esa edad, ¿no? Me preguntaba si tú habías tenido alguna vez alguna experiencia parecida en ese sentido. Ya entiendo que ser una directora es complicado, ser una directora de cine de género todavía es más difícil.
It's an interesting interesting question, and I agree with you. Like, it's so great to see so many young audience coming to see the film and being interested and resonating with the movie. I was very happy about that everywhere when I went to screenings, and I think the movie really, I think, resonate with our times in many different ways. And of course, I think the issues about men, women, how we position ourselves in society, how society start to evolve regarding those matters, I think is a huge part of our present time. It's I think we live in a moment where there is a lot of old stuff that try to come back or to stay, but there is also a lot of new voices and a lot of new changes that are really trying to make their way and to shift society. And to me, this conversation in the bathroom, which I think is the first moment where I really express the violence of all those issues, I chose it to do in some people say very caricatural way, but I tell them, unfortunately, I don't think it's a caricature, because those voices, they do exist for real, unfortunately. You know, Harvey, the name is like, speaks for himself, really, you know, existed for real in a much worse way in reality. And to me, my way of trying to changing things and to addressing is like to show for real with the satire how violent it is and how everywhere it is and how direct it is. And to me, that I think that's when you show things, when you name them, when you don't are not afraid to show them for what they are, that you can start to make a change. And I would say, regarding my relationship as being a female filmmaker in the industry, it's an interesting question, because I think there are many different layers in the way that I have never felt directly, you know, forbidden to do something, or like directly said, no, we're not going to let you do this because you're a woman. But I do think that on a bigger scope, what I witness around me in the industry, where there is still like the numbers who are still so inegalitarian, you know, in the number of female filmmakers who direct film, they say a lot of things in I think how the industry is structured. Also, the budget matter, like, you know, the big budgets, there are still very, very few female filmmakers who have like a budget to do films. And I do think that all this still is, you know, a product of everything around the way society is organized, where, you know, power, domination, how you represent someone that is in charge or someone that is in command. I think unconsciously, naturally, it's still very much linked to the male figure, you know, like the director with his cap, and, you know, he gives orders and he knows how to do things. So I would say that the thing that I have personally the most struggle with is how, when you are, I think, a female director, having a position of authority or, you know, leadership can be more difficult, because people are not used in such a natural way. And to me, that's what I think is very important in representations, in people that you see doing things. And the movie is about telling that from a certain age, you don't see women anymore doing things. Yeah. They just disappear from the picture. And for instance, me, I grew up like loving films that were made by male directors, genre film. They were they were considered for guys. Like when I loved those films, everyone was telling me, "Oh, she likes boys movies," you know. And I think when I think about it now, I think those tastes that I had that were considered being like for guys often made me feel as a monster because I didn't like what little girls were supposed to like. I didn't like to play with dolls or to do the cooking stuff, or, you know, like I liked, yes, watching violent films or being outside because I felt there were so much more freedom and fun, you know, in all that. And again, the representation that is linked to you're not supposed to like this or to do this because you're a girl or you're a guy really influence the way you feel inside. And for me, like, I think many times in my life, I felt as a monster because I didn't like the things that little girls were supposed to like, or I didn't naturally behave the way, you know, little girls were supposed to behave to be considered, you know, pretty girls who should always smile. So I think it's a much more, you know, bigger picture that I think influenced my relationship to the world and to society, and that I wanted also to put in the movie, because I think that, yes, the images that you see around you, the place where you see people, you know, doing things, builds a lot the thing that yourself you're going to feel authorized to do or not to do. And the movie in the end is really about that.
Sí, me interesa mucho que hablas de the way you feel. Hay algo en el cine de género que haces, que es un género claramente político, pero que reside siempre en verdades psicológicas. Todo muy verosímil, ¿no? A partir de ahí creas un relato donde realmente le das forma a los miedos femeninos frente a la opresión estética. ¿Cómo llegas a esa idea?
I don't know, maybe this one I need the translation.
Yeah, it's the way you treat genre is very political, but at the same time, it's very based on verisimilitude. So there's always a psychological truth. There's always something to relate to. And I think, for example, in this, like in fairy tales, for example, you use the fears that you feel in front of the oppression on the aesthetic, on the way we look like. And you turn that into a genre film.
Yes, I mean, I like the relationship with the fairy tales because I think from when we're a kid, they really shape our imagination and our representations, and what is considered as beautiful or what is considered as ugly, and the way we develop a relationship with who we are and what we're supposed to look like. It's true, like, for instance, Cinderella, which you know, has some kind of reminiscence in the film. It's the story that is presented when you're a little girl as the beautiful, blonde, thin, you know, princess, which is going to be seen by the prince, and she's going to be saved and happy, and you know, all this when she's beautiful with all those dress and everything. And I think, like, this image of what is the perfect girl translate in many different ways at different ages. You know, when you're little, it's the Cinderella, it's the Barbies. Then me, when I was a teenager, it was the supermodels, you know, who were like perfect and, you know, photoshopped, and you don't know it, and you think that's what they're really look like for real, with absolutely no flaws and everything. And all this, I think, really build in a very powerful way the expectations that you think you have to meet. And it's true that those expectations, they are really built by a fantasy of the man who desired women and who, like, said, okay, to be desirable and to be worth of value, women have to be like that. And it changed during, you know, history. Like, and in the movie, I speak about my time when I grew up as a little girl and then a teenager, what was presented to me as being the ultimate fantasy that would bring happiness on you and make you have a place in society. And this image, I think it's so powerful and it's so everywhere. And it's so like one shape, you know, there are no different models, that it really shape a very, very strong relationship with yourself that makes you think that if you don't look like that, then something's wrong with you. Like something wrong with you, and you're gonna develop an extreme violence with yourself, trying to change yourself, trying to look like this idea of perfection that isn't real. And what is funny in the film, that Margaret, the character of Sue, she's a creation for the movie, because naturally Margaret, you know, she's more like a tomboy in real life. When I met her, she was like extra thin. She's not at all like the super sexy girl that you see in Sue. And we created that ideal vision, you know, of my representation of the fantasy that I grew up with. So basically, like, she trained, like, you know, we took a trainer and she trained every day to shape her body, like with all those curves. We built like fake boobs with prosthetics, so to create all those curves. She has like extensions of hair. So, you know, she's a creation. And I think the way we shape that character says a lot about how you get an ideal, and that an ideal doesn't exist for real. But we still tyrannize ourselves with this idea of the ideal that we think we should look like. And then we end up having such a huge war inside of us, like behind the pearly smile and the nice dress, like there is a huge war and a huge violence that we do to ourselves to try to look like those perfect models that are presented to us. And that's why I wanted the movie to be that excessive, to be that gory, to be that bold, to be that violent, because everything regarding this is so violent. It's really yes, a fucking war about, you know, fighting ourselves constantly to try and look like an ideal that even doesn't exist for real. And I think it's still a very strong weapon of domination that, you know, forbids us to just take our place in the world without having to care about our body, basically. I was discussing with a journalist. It was very interesting, and he was telling me, you know, it's true. Me, I'm a 50-year-old guy. When I go out in the street, I can ignore my body. I cannot think about it. But I have two 15-year-old daughters, and I know that when they go out in the street, they can't ignore their bodies. And this hyper consciousness, this hyper vigilance, this hyper conscious of yes, how we're going to be looked like, how we're going to be scrutinized, how we're going to be, you know, chopped into pieces, into boobs, into ass, into legs, into... It makes a massive difference in the way we inhabit the world, in the way we take our place, or we don't take it totally, because like there is so much that we have to just be careful about. And that was also to me something very, very important that I wanted to share in the movie, and why this final image of the monster going on stage, which is a moment where she's so beyond the expectation of what, you know, a girl should look like. It's her moment of freedom. She doesn't have to care anymore. And it's precisely the moment where she says, okay, I'm going to put my earrings, I'm going to do my hair, I'm going to put my dress, no matter into what shape it's going to end up, and I'm going to go on stage because I deserve to be there. Of course, like, the world is not really ready to welcome her that way. But that was a very important thing, an idea that I wanted to infuse in the film, about how much all this prevent us from just, yes, fully taking our place in the world. And I think it loops with the first question you ask about, you know, those issues, or how you're seen as a director, and all those, you know, relationship to authority, to like command and everything. That, to me, everything is very linked in the big picture.
Sí, hablando de ese momento de libertad, me parece muy interesante el final del relato, cuando Elizabeth por fin, bueno, ellas dos se han liberado de su cuerpo, y vemos esa imagen tan bizarra de la cara sobre la estrella de Hollywood, es quizá ese momento en el que ella por fin está libre de su cuerpo, que puede apreciar la belleza, ¿no? Tiene esa imagen de las palmeras que ella ha visto en una bola de cristal y sin embargo no pudo apreciar la belleza en ese momento, y es cuando ella está liberada de su propio cuerpo que puede apreciar esa belleza.
Exactly. It's for me the final scene was at the same time like of showing like both look at what you're doing to us, look at how violent all this is, look at the level, you know, of violence that all these behaviors generate. But also, as you say, I wanted this almost cathartic, you know, and freeing moment where finally, as she doesn't have any body anymore, she is free to enjoy who she is. And that's a moment where symbolically also she reunites with herself, with her name on the star, which she has been, you know, from the start. And that's who she is. And it's the moment where she's able to enjoy it without judging herself, without caring about how people are gonna judge her, how people are gonna, you know, want her or not desire her, or and that final smile when she looks at the little stars, confettis, you know, falling on her. It's really her moment of glory and her moment of accomplishment, even if it's as much on the pavement. But absolutely, the only moment where she's able to do that is when she doesn't have a body anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like ella es como su propia enemiga. No es solo la violencia que ella recibe del exterior, sino la que ella se aflija a sí misma. Me hago un link aquí con dos relatos clásicos de terror que podrían ser Dr. Jekyll y Mr. Hyde o el The Picture of Dorian Gray, donde realmente, fíjate, has hablado mucho de las redes sociales y al igual que la sustancia, las redes sociales es algo a lo que nos prestamos voluntariamente. Se nos vende como la libertad y la máxima comunicación, pero en un momento dado nos encontramos aislados, mirando el teléfono y controlados en todo momento. Es decir, nosotros mismos nos inoculamos la sustancia en todo momento.
Yes, I think you're right. We are often our own worst enemies. And I think the movie, to me, really also speaks about that, about what it is, who we are as human beings. And I don't think we are one. I think the fact that we are one is made of, yes, very different sides that cohabit, you know, live together inside of us. And I think it's problematic when we are asked to be just one thing that doesn't change, that doesn't evolve, that stays always the same. Because I think it's the essence of humanity, of who we are as human beings, to change, to evolve, to have multiple voices inside of us. And that was the idea with expressing for real this other you in the world that is you, but that is also different than you. That because I think all of us, someday we can be someone, and the other day we can, you know, be another person, or another part of us can express, you know, ourselves. And the fact also for me that I wanted to express that we are body and soul, and the body we have, I think, really influence our relationship to how we live the world, how we think. And even if Elizabeth knows that she shouldn't do something, when she wakes up in this amazing body that everyone is going to praise and look at, her mind thinks totally different. Her relationship with the world is totally different. She's another person. And so I think this is true from the beginning of humanity, and that's what, to me, also is a very philosophical side of sci-fi that include, you know, in sci-fi all the fantasy, like all the Faustian, you know, pact, all the what makes or the relationship of who we are as human being, our fears, our desires, our fantasies. And I think a very strong element of that is like to not finish, to, you know, to be able to fight our human limits, the human limits of our bodies, and the level of crazy things we are, you know, willing to do for this promise, like the Dorian Gray or the Faust, you know, pact. It's really this is like this crazy desire, you know, to escape our human condition that make us put the finger in the trap, and once we trapped, like there is no escape. So I think yes, all this lives in the film, and I think like one of the way we should live with ourselves would be to accept and feel that society accept all the different parts of ourselves, the part that are imperfect, the part that are changing, the part that are aging, the part that are, because I think that's where you can find your true expression and your true self. But this is super and difficult and almost impossible to do on an individual level. Even if you want to think like that, everything around that you receive can make you feel that no, you're not allowed to be all those things. So to me, to find a real freedom and a real liberation regarding all this, it's everything around that has to change, because I don't think you can say to people, oh, you have to feel good with yourself, if everything around you in the world you live in tells you, no, this we don't want to see that. No, this we don't want to, you know, put it on screen. This, no, is not worth our time and our interest. That's why I think everything is systemic and has to be think about in a big picture that is infusing, I think, every layer of society that lead to build, you know, all those jails that we're lock ourselves into.
Sí, estoy de acuerdo esta idea de cambiar la percepción del exterior, pero hay una escena, por ejemplo, que me parece aterradora, que tiene que ver con la manera con la que lidiamos las expectativas que se tienen sobre nosotros, que es esa escena en la que ella tiene una cita y es incapaz de acudir. Es quizá para mí el momento más aterrador de la película. No tiene nada de efectos especiales, no tiene nada de maquillaje, tiene que ver con ese terror a cómo lidiamos con la imagen que se tiene de nosotros.
So sorry, is this one, can you say maybe in English?
Yeah, no, I was thinking that you're talking about how we change the idea that we have about the context around ourselves, but there is one scene that I love, which is that one where she has a date and she's not able to make it because she's dealing with the expectations the others have about herself.
Yes, exactly. I think to me this scene is really the emotional heart of the film.
The most shocking one to me, the most horrific one.
Yes, it's one that is, I think you're right, so violent because it's human violence at its simplest, you know, expression and the most violent. And I think it's a scene where you can exactly see the distortion between the reality, what she looks like, a beautiful woman, like, you know, who's about to go on a date, and what she imagines or what her vision, you know, tells her about the fact that, no, she's not good enough. No, this is not sexy enough. No, this is not young enough. All these things that are putting like layers that destroy you, and which are going to be more powerful than you, and that crushes the character. And I think we've all lived that scene in a way or another.
It's so easy to feel empathy for her. I spent 1 hour in my hotel room trying to see how should I look like here before coming to this meeting.
I'm happy you came.
Now, another question. How do you convince somebody like Demi Moore to do something like that? She's extraordinary.
Yes, she is absolutely extraordinary. I think it was, I knew that the casting process would be the most challenging thing of the movie, because I wanted an actress who would be, you know, the representation of the star, this iconic, you know, representation of the actress. But I knew that it was going to be like asking an actress to confront her very own phobia. So I knew I was going to have a lot of no's on the way, which happened. And when we thought about Demi, I said, like, I think it's a great idea, but I really think she will never want to do something like that. I genuinely thought she was not ready at all to play like that with her image. And we sent her the script because we had nothing to lose. And in fact, it turned out that she really connected very, very strongly with the script. And I think it's because also it came at a moment of her life where she was also in a process of taking back some control over who she was, and, you know, how people were going to see her, her relationship to her career. And all this came at a moment where she felt that this could be a liberating and a freeing expression. And when we met, you know, we spent a lot of time discussing how I wanted to make the movie. For me, it was the most important to really explain her at length, because she also never had done a genre film. So, you know, everything that was going to build the movie together with her performance, the relationship with the framings, with the visuals, with the sound, with all the silent, you know, choreography that is very, very specific, and that is very specific also to my way of filming, because I knew that it was really, if she had all that in mind, that we could create something successful together. Also, of course, all the relationship to the nudity, because for me, the nudity is a real tool in the film to convey the message, and each shot had a meaning, and I really wanted her to understand everything beforehand, to really understand why each shot was needed, was having a very strong signification. And so she could feel at ease with that, and then invest it with her own, you know, emotional performance. And I think it's all those discussions that really created a very strong, trustful bond that would allow, no matter, you know, the difficulties during the shooting, because a shooting, you know, is always challenging. We had more than 100 shooting days, you know, in France, far from her house. So I know that there were going to be good days, bad days, you know, but what would matter...
Do you use that in order to get a better performance from the actor? Because I think one thing that you do, for example, that I think is very interesting, is how you blend the actor with the character. You know, in this case, it's obvious, you know, when you talk about the Mimo, but being so far away from home for that long.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I would say, like, I love when you have a chance to not be at home when you shoot. Me, I was in Paris, but I think when you have the luxury, I would say, to be far from your regular habit, it can create something very special that can at first put you out of your comfort zone, but that can also create something that you might not have been able to create if you have all your habits around you. So I think it's finding the specific zone when the actor feels confident enough, you know, and safe enough to have what he needs to create his performance, but also allows himself or herself to let go into territories that he wouldn't have explored otherwise. And it's true that when we were working with Demi, if I was feeling that the scene wasn't at the right place where it should be in terms of intensity, or in terms of, you know, when you don't write dialogue, everything has to be super specific. Every framing, every rhythm, every pacing, every level of intensity. It has to be not too much, but not too little for the moment where you are in the script. Because if you miss one step, the steps that come after won't work. So I was extremely vigilant and precise if I knew that we weren't there, to not let go and to keep working the scene until I knew it was the right level for the scene. And Demi had really the intelligence of understanding that, even if sometimes it was hard, or, you know, like, sometimes it's not easy. And when you're in a scene where, yes, you have to remove your makeup 15 times until you get there, when you're cooking like crazy with eggs on your face, like, sometimes you wish you don't have to redo the scene. But I think she always understood when I was explaining her that we weren't there yet. She always was willing to do the scene again to get to the right place. Because I think in the end, even if sometimes, you know, like, yes, as I was saying, there are days with and days without, I think she trusted the movie, she trusted the vision, and she trusted me as a director to, you know, keep the boat and take it to destination. And to me, that's really what makes great collaboration when there is this level of trust. And it doesn't always imply that everything is going to be easy. You know, I think to me that's what real trust is about, is that even in the difficult moment, you keep your trust and you keep trusting the work and you overcome the difficulties. And I really believe that's what we managed to create. And I think she was absolutely brave, and she took the risk that the film needed. And especially for those genre films, when everything is operatic, you never know until it's there how it's going to be. So it was a huge level of trust for her to commit to this. And I'm so happy that she deserves now all the praise for that.
It's interesting that you mentioned the lack of dialogue, since your cinema it's genre, but it's very political, and there are no explicit messages. I think that a few weeks ago, I was here with Villeneuve, and he was telling me that his process starts with images. In my case, for example, I would say that my process starts with moments, and I build up around those moments. But when I see the powerful images in your film, I wonder, what is your process, and how is your relation with images?
Yes, it's true that for me the process is very related from the very, very beginning of the writing to image and sound. It's really what builds for me the narrative, and it's really what even builds my writing. When I start to write, I have a few different processes. I have an idea, and then I start to research a lot of visuals, a lot of graphic reference, painting, colors, sounds that, you know, build around the idea and the theme, together with a bit like you, welcoming a few moments. And I remember, like, the first scene that I wrote, totally, I didn't even know who my character was going to be or what the full story was going to be, is the birth sequence when Sue is born from Elizabeth. And I wrote, it's the first thing that I wrote in a very, very detailed way, with the image, the sound, all the immersive thing. And I knew, in fact, that's the first DNA of the movie that I had created, because I think kind of all of the movie is in that scene. It's about the relationship with your image, the way you look at yourself in a mirror. No dialogue, very immersive, you know, visceral experience, with all the relationship to the body falling on the floor, deforming, all the sound, and all the more experimental, you know, visuals. And from there, I know that it's something that I know I have to stick with, and I start to build around that. And when I start to develop more my story or build my characters, I work mostly with symbolism. So I'm looking for the symbolism, visual and sound, that gonna incarnate for the best the ideas I want to share. So that's how for instance, I decided to make the main character an actress, because for me it was the best symbolism of the fact that you take your words from the eyes of other people who look at you, and the actress is, you know, constantly under the public eye, and she
needs to create a facade,
exactly,
a performance,
exactly. And so that was the first symbol that I found to tell this message. And after that came the idea, okay, so what would be the most powerful symbol of the actress? And that's when the idea of the Walk of Fame and the star came, which is the Hollywood, you know, actress, which is this massive idea of, you know, if you are the star, young, beautiful, smiling, you're going to be in the spotlight, you're going to be loved, you're going to be happy, and, you know, and it's going to be great for you. And I knew that what I was interested in was the symbol aspect of it, the one that we have in our unconscious collective mind, that even if we haven't been to Hollywood, we all have an idea through the movies and through the cultural mass, you know, diffusion of this idea of the Hollywood star. And that's why also I knew that I wanted this Hollywood landscape to not be realistic, but to be a symbolical location for the film. And little by little, that's how the story builds, when I found those powerful symbols that start to set the story into a place. I would call it the world of the film. I remember for Revenge, it was when I found the idea of the desert, which I knew would be a character in itself. And here I knew that it was this symbolic Hollywood world that was going to be a huge character in the movie, because it's in those locations that I'm going to project what the character go through. And the apartment or the location, they are really doors that shows how the character feel, how the character evolved. And the apartment is destroyed at the same time that Elizabeth gets destroyed herself. So it's almost a kind of expressionist way of thinking the locations, about how they reflect the character's mind, the character's journey. So I really, research and choose every visual element from the writing, like the yellow coat, like the pink leotard for Sue, the corridor. All these, they are really how I write my scripts in the end, because as I also edit, and don't write a lot of dialogue. It's really by building all those scenes with their pacing, with what they're going to convey to the audience, with the colors, the framing, the pacing, that I create my scene in the end.
Vamos a abrir también al público, así que si alguien tiene alguna pregunta, que levante la mano. Te pregunto mientras por el humor. Creo que la película, curioso que tanta gente joven, hay mucho público joven, lo hablábamos antes, que no está acostumbrado al gore, y lo está descubriendo ahora. Tu película sigue la tradición del gran guiñol, que es el gore relacionado con el humor, ¿no? Se me ocurren los casos evidentes de Sam Raimi, ¿no? De Frank Henenlotter, de Peter Jackson en Brain Dead. ¿Cómo te relacionas tú también con el humor?
Yeah, to me it's a very important component that I love in genre film, and that's, I think, a very powerful element that I've always loved in the movies that I loved. I think also about the South Korean cinema that also, you know, goes with the excess, with a lot of humor that, you know, goes together with the extreme violence. There is also this, you know, in Tarantino's movie, for instance, or in many others, that to me allow the violence to be a tool and not to be there just for the violence. that's to me what allows to transform the violence into a political expression about something that's going to create an emotion. And for me, using the Baroque, like the operatic, the excess that goes beyond realistic thing, transform the violence almost into poetry, you know, into something that's going to make you feel, give you thinking, makes you, you know, develop thought about something. And I like it because it's not a totally direct way, you know, it's something that infuse, I think, with yourself. But to me, that's where I think I love to use the violence because it creates emotions. Mm-hmm. And it's true, like there is a very important part of me that I've always loved, you know, dealing with the humor also in films. And here it just made perfect sense. And when I write, it's true that I welcome this the way it comes, and it's naturally goes with the more evil something is, the more, you know, cruel or violent something is, there is a counterpart of the dark humor, you know, that comes together. Probably because it's linked also to our different parts, you know, like the balance that you have between things. And this one, for me, makes the use of the violence into an art and not just into like something that is violent just to be violent. And that's really what I loved about that.
Yeah, it also helps to set a distance.
Exactly.
And then focus in the message.
Exactly. Totally. I think it's super cathartic. It's like, it also, yes, allows you to accept everything that the movie says. Exactly. And to be able to process it, because we need, yes, to have doors that open to, you know, take all this blood.
Hi, well, my name is Chris, and it's such an honor to have both of you here, because I found all of this very inspiring. Like, your movie really inspired me in like all the themes you name in this movie, and most of all, like quoting Bayona a few minutes ago, like that new naming came, and that new director, that your movie and all of those cinemas, I find it very inspiring, and I would like to ask you for an advice, because here we are, most of us are young filmmakers, so I would love to hear an advice from a younger director, from a new director who is like experiencing this new boom, this new experience from everything. Like, I would love to hear an advice from you.
Thank you so much for your words. I would say, yeah, I have a few advice I could say. My first advice would be like, stay true to yourself. Like, embrace who you are and do what makes sense for you, and don't try to look like someone else. But it can be the most difficult when you want to make films. So something that really helped me when I started as a director making short films was to meet other directors who were the same stage than me, who had done short film as well. And we used to share our experiences. We used to gather, it was 6 of us, like just to share advice. Like, we made ourselves read our scripts to one another. We invited people, you know, from the industry to come and meet us, to explain us how they worked, to really also understand the keys of the industry, because when you start, you have to start, I think, with people who are at the same level than you, like team up, you know, with a young producer who is also starting to making movies, so who is going to be interested into discovering a new filmmaker. If you knock at the door of a producer who has already done 100 films, who work with huge directors, he might not have time, you know, or willing to work with a very newcomer. So I think it's really building step-by-step relationship with other filmmakers that are at the same level than you, with who you can share so much experience, advice, contacts, because I think having, you know, your team around you is super helpful. And also building the people you want to work with who wants to do the same thing than you. Like I used to say, I lost a lot of time. At first, I struggled a lot because I had those movies that were genre films. In France, it's very difficult because no one really wanted to do that. And at first, I was going to knock at the door of producer who was like super intellectual, you know, super like realistic, psychological movie. And they were all looking at my script, looking like me, like, what the fuck is that? Like, and I felt like, oh my God, so what I do is shit. And like, and really, and if you knock at the doors that are not the right doors for you, you're gonna get rejected. And anyway, rejection in this business is the path to success. You will go through rejection at some point. So I would say, stick to who you are, try to knock at the right doors for what you want to do, and then just keep the face and the nerves, because it's yes, if you really want to get there, you will succeed, but it can be hard, and have good friends around you who wants to do the same, and with who you can share your experience. To me, that's what gave me the most strength in doing that. And I still have those friends and friends filmmaker who I speak to when, you know, I need advice, and the journey can still be tough.
Embrace your own weirdo.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, there is I always remember Joseph Campbell, the expert in mythology. He says that you need to imagine yourself in a small room with a record player and listening to a song that you will never tell anyone that you like that song. And he says, that song is you. So the bravest you are in showing that song to the other people, the better artist you will be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Otra pregunta. Así intentando un poco averiguar your process as a filmmaker. We all filmmakers know that there are 3 movies: the one that you prepare, the one that you shoot, and the one that you cut and do the post-production, the finished film. How different is your film, your finished film, with the film that you thought before shooting it?
I would say that it's very faithful to the script, but because I think it's because of the way I write, which is so specific in the sense that when I write, I really write what I'm going to shoot, and I also write what I'm going to edit. So I already have in mind, I would say, almost everything that I want to film and hear. So it's true that people who saw the film and read my script say it's like, yeah, like the movie is really like what I read. Like, you know, we can't say that you made another film. Of course, so many things change in the process because you have something on a page and then you're going to deal with human beings, with real flesh and blood, and that's what makes movies. So there are, of course, things that, you know, turn out differently, but for this one, it was very, very close to what I had written. The most difficult thing, I think, was in the post-production, because as the movie almost doesn't have dialogue and is so much about finding the right pacing and the right level, until everything was there, you know, the sound, the music, the VFX, it was really, really hard to get to having, you know, finding the final pacing. So it was really a work that I needed to do together with the sound, with the VFX, with the music, because everything influenced the way we received a scene. So
you work with all these departments at the same time?
Yes. So it was, you know, I did a first pass of editing where I kind of mocked up, you know, myself some sound, work with temp tracks or thing like that. But you know, it still just gives you an idea of what it's going to be. And then when you start working with the sound design to have a first pass on it, it totally changed the balance of the way you receive things. And a scene, for instance, that you felt, oh, maybe it's too long or I should cut it down. When you have the sound, no, it totally expresses, you know, itself. And you say, oh, no, I can't make it shorter. At the contrary, I need it now to be longer. And it's very, very true, especially in the silent scenes. And same thing for the music. Once the final music is there, or the music that is going to be from the composer, it totally changes. It can change a lot the way the pacing of your scene is going to shape. So that's why I kept like my edit alive until the very, very last minute during the recording mix, because each time a new element was building, it had an impact on the way you were receiving what comes before and what comes next. So I, you know, kept changing, adjusting things so everything builds in the right pacing with all the elements together. But it's really once the movie was 100 finished that you could totally, you know, receive it as a whole and take it with everything, you know, that makes it a real visceral experience.
Bueno, tenemos que ir acabando. Me pregunto si puede haber una pregunta más. Me dicen que no. Vamos a hacer una más solo. Pero tiene que ser brillante. Esa es brillante. Si no, no la hacemos, ¿eh?
Es brillante. Nada a mí, ¿eh? Perdón. I hope, I'm not sure if it's brilliant, but hopefully it's worth it. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. It's a privilege to be listening to you. And we had a doubt about all the things you were saying, that you are constructing the movie, beginning from images and sound. And watching the movie, of course, you have such an original and particular way of telling this story that tells so much about our current times, and especially being a woman. And we have this doubt with the images portraying Sue when she's dancing and like a video clip. And we were wondering if maybe it was, I don't know, maybe perpetuating a little bit, you know, how this kind of women are portrayed. Maybe, I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe it's in contrast with all the other things that you do that nobody else does. But maybe seeing Sue so much, like repeating and repeating, for me, it was a little bit too much, maybe falling again into the same discourse.
That's a very interesting question.
Good.
Yes.
I was so nervous.
So it's true that the way Sue is portrayed, to me, is a really key element of my way of addressing those issues. And I chose to genuinely express my relationship with that into the fact that I feel that with everything that I see around, with the way I grew up, with all those images, I could many times feel in my own life that the only way for me to be valued and to exist and to have a place in the world was to over-sexualize myself. Or if I didn't have this over-sexualized body, that I wouldn't be worth attention and people's eyes. And to me, it's a very, very important component, I think, to the relationship with our own body and the place where freedom is really or isn't totally. And to me, it's a very complex thing about the way, for me, the ideal would be that every woman should be allowed to use her body the way she wants and to present herself sexy if she wants to, not sexy if she doesn't want to, transform her body, not transform it from a total, free point of view. But I think the thing of what you do from a, how do you say, like a free space, and the thing that you think you want from yourself, but are influenced by everything that is around you, and that make you think that this is the way you should be if you want to exist. This relationship is very, to me, powerful and still very, very present in the relationship, I think, that women especially have with the way their body is sexualized and the way they sexualize themselves, their own body. This is something that I already explored in a different way in Revenge, and to me that is at the core of my own relationship with me being a woman and dealing with the image, those images that represent me and the body. And it's true that I grew up with those video clips, on MTV, like all those sexy girls, like, and I truly believe that there is a huge jail here too about the fact that we think that it's the only way to express ourselves, or I wish we could do that and choose to do that in a totally free place or genuinely not influenced by any gaze. I don't think it's totally possible, but I chose for real to represent how massive these representations can be and how overwhelming they can be. And the fact that, to me, the Sue video clip, the Pump It Up, becomes so over sexy that it's almost, to me, how do you say, overwhelming, and it kind of destroys, the character, and it destroys Elizabeth, who watch at that. It's like if those images were crushing you. To me, it was a very genuinely important thing that I wanted to express with my own relationship with this, because I think it's an issue that has many layers, and that was my way, in a very sincere, gesture, to express it with all the violent thing that it had created with my own experience, with how you deal with that, how you deal. And I think when you look at, the internet, the social network, like, I think it's everywhere. I think yes, those representations and the way we deal with that is everywhere. And I think it's, to me, it's a key thing that I hope, is also gonna give us freedom in the way we handle those representations.
Bueno, ahora sí, tenemos que marcharnos. Muchas gracias a todos por venir.
Thank you so
merci,
much.
Coralie Fargeat.
Merci beaucoup.
And good luck with everything.
Thank you.